Hi everyone, welcome to today's PRINCE2 in the 30 minutes webinar. Unfortunately, we are experiencing a few sort of technical issues, so we won't be able to turn our cameras on today. So you'll just have the slides, but you'll still be able to see the important information, which is good. My name's Etty. I'm the Content Marketing Executive at ILX. We'll just give it another minute for a few more people to join, but in the meantime, I will run through a few housekeeping bits. And then once we've done those, I'll hand over to Karen, who is our ILX PRINCE2 trainer, and she will be taking you through the webinar today. So firstly, you'll notice that you've all come in on mute. Please do stay that way. It just means that everything's a lot clearer from Karen's side and from your side as well. You'll be able to hear her a lot easier if people aren't sort of mumbling in the background. If you do have any questions as you go through, we're going to be doing a Q&A session at the end. So please just pop your questions in the question box. If they're sort of technical issues, then I'll be kind of messaging back and forth in the background. If not, if they're about the course content and about the webinar session itself, then Karen will answer them when we get to the Q&A at the end. Secondly, the webinar is being recorded. So we'll be sending out an email tomorrow to all of you that have joined with the information about how to access the recording. That'll be up on YouTube from this afternoon, so you'll be able to watch it back there or sort of share with anybody else if you think they'll find it useful. We also like to say give us a follow on social media. We are active on Facebook, LinkedIn and Instagram, so that's at ILX Group. You can find us over on there. We've got lots of useful information about sort of upcoming webinars and other sessions and new course launches and things like that. So it's a really sort of useful place for information about ILX. So today's session is going to take about 30 minutes, as sort of says in the title, and then we'll leave sort of 15-20 minutes for Q&A at the end, so you can ask any questions that you have got at that point. So yeah, without further ado, I shall hand you over to Karen, who will be doing today's session.
Okay, thank you very much there. So welcome, I'm Karen, and as we've just heard, I'm a PRINCE2 trainer at ILX. So as far as the agenda for this session, what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at PRINCE2, but we're going to look at how it can be really easy to learn if we break it down, if we look at some of the really easy things that are quite easy to remember, some helpful, quick and easy hints and tips. So we're going to look at the framework, but without overcomplicating it. And at the end, we will have some questions and answers as well. So first of all, we're going to start off with our first poll. So if we just launch this first one, here we go. So the first poll is asking about what is your current experience with project management. So if we could just mark down your current experience, gives us an idea of where people are before we go through things today. Okay, just wait for those to settle down. That looks like everyone has more or less voted there. Last chance to vote, and we'll end that poll and just share the results. So as far as the poll is concerned, it's saying that the majority of people are new into project management, which is what we generally expecting. Some have some project management qualifications, but not necessarily PRINCE2. And yet there are other qualifications out there that often complement alongside PRINCE2. And then some people already have PRINCE2, maybe of a previous version or even of the current version. Okay, so it gives you an idea of where we're coming from. So the majority of people new into project management. So let's close that down there. Okay, so we'll have another couple of polls as we're going along. It's always interesting to see where people are at with things. So kicking off, we want to start off with, well, what is a project? If we're talking about project management, we need to start off by understanding what a project is. And here we've got the definition of a PRINCE2 project. So it says that a project is a temporary organisation that is created for the purpose of delivering one or more business product according to an agreed business case. Now, it might just be one sentence that, but there's a lot of key information within it. One of the first things is the fact that it's temporary. Every project is always temporary. Once the project has delivered what it needs to do, the project closes down, and it's business as usual that then picks up and uses the products that have been implemented by the project. And the other key point in this is according to an agreed business case. The business case is used to justify the investment in the project, looking at, well, what is the investment in comparison to the positive benefits for the business? So looking at the difference between a project and business as usual, the project is here to produce some products, could be a service, it could be various different things, but every project is unique and different. So every project is creating specialist products. At the end of the day, it's all stuff. So once the project has produced the products, the stuff it needs to do, they will then be implemented into business as usual. And the users within business as usual will then start to use the new products. So these specialist products are referred to as an output from the project. And once the users start to use these new products, this new output, things in business as usual will start to change. So if this is some new procedures, when they start to follow the new procedures, they're doing things different to how they did before. If it's a new system, if it's a new building, it's bringing about a change. So once the users start to use the new products, the change will start to happen. And the change is referred to as an outcome. Now, with any sort of change, there's always two sides to change. We have a positive side, which is referred to as a benefit, a measurable improvement for the business. But a negative side is referred to as a disbenefit. Now, with any sort of change, there is always positives and negatives. Even if we're introducing a fantastic new way of working, that might mean that the business can operate with 2 less members of staff. The positive side of that for the business, the benefits would be a reduction in salary of 2 people. But the negative side is that they will also lose those 2 people's knowledge, skills and experience. That's the reality. So as we are looking at the big picture of the project, we want to understand, well, what change are we wanting to bring about in the business? And then thinking about what can the project produce to enable that change to deliver those benefits. Now, one of the things around projects and project management is terminology. And anything that we can make terminology a little bit easier, I will share with you. So here we've got outputs and outcomes. But if we highlight in an output the letter P, that will hopefully help us to connect that the output is to do with the products. And in outcome, we've highlighted the letter C. So hopefully that will help to remind us that the outcome is all about the change in the business. Now, as far as PRINCE2 is concerned, PRINCE2 is made up of 5 integrated elements of principles, practices, processes, the project context, and people. Now, the principles, there's 7 principles, and these are like the underlying rules. So these are guiding obligations that must all be applied. Once we've learnt the principles, they will be like second nature. It would feel weird if there was not principles in place. The practices, these are addressed continually throughout the project. These are different kind of like subject areas of project management. The processes talk about stepwise progression through the project. So it talks us through step by step from the beginning to the end of exactly what we need to do. The project context is very much around the project environment, thinking about the organisational environment, thinking about the project itself, and think about how PRINCE2 needs to be flexible in order to take on any particular needs of that environment, that context that we're working within. And the 5th integrated element is people. And projects need people, but people are all individual people, and we want to think about, well, what is their skills and experience? Are they the right people? How can we motivate people to be part of the project team? Now, in order to learn about these integrated elements, to bring them alive a little bit, I want to tell us a little bit of a story. So if we was producing a meal is a bit like a project, it's temporary. When we look at the principles, these are like the underlying rules that once we've learned them would be like second nature. It would feel weird if they're not there. So if we was preparing some food, washing our hands is a bit like a principle. Once we've learnt to wash our hands before we touch any food, it's something we'd automatically do. When we come to the practices, it says these are addressed continually throughout the project. So if we are preparing a meal, the ingredients that we are needing to produce that meal will be used all the way through that project, but they will be evolving and changing. If we're making a cottage pie, for example, we're going to need various different ingredients, including potatoes to go on the top. But that product of the potato is going to go through various different steps. The potatoes we buy from the supermarket will need to be peeled, washed, boiled, mashed before it's added on top of the base. And we can often do more than one thing at once. As we're preparing the potatoes, we can be preparing the base at the same time, chopping the onions while we're still doing something else. So the practices can happen alongside each other, and these are evolving and changing as we go through the project. Now the processes, stepwise progression. If we've never made a cottage pie before, then we might want to follow a recipe that will show us step by step of what to do. The recipe will tell us exactly what to do with the ingredients at that point of time, and the processes are the same. The processes tell us what to do with the practices at that point in the project. But we also need to remember the principles, washing our hands. That will be needed all the way through, the principles are needed all the way through the project. Now, the project context, the environment in which we are operating, we need to think about if we're making a cottage pie, is it a cottage pie for one? Do we need to tailor the recipe? Do we need to include carrots, or do we have them at the side? Or the real controversy with a cottage pie is cheese. Should a cottage pie have cheese on the top or not? That could be something that may need to be tailored. And finishing off with people. So do we have people that's got the right skills in order to make this cottage pie? Are we supporting people? How can we motivate people? But also recognise that they have relationships with other people in the project and other people within the organisation itself. And we want to make use of those positive relationships to pass on our messages and to understand things better. So all of these integrated elements are making up PRINCE2 itself. So the principles, we saw there how these are needed all the way through the project. We have 7 principles, and unless all of them are used, it is not a PRINCE2 project. The first one is talking about ensuring continued business justification. So it's referring to the business case here. And we need to make sure that we've not just got the justification at the beginning of the project, but we need to make sure that we've got justification throughout the project. So we would measure this at key points. Learn from experience, so learn from what's happened before. Defined roles, responsibilities, relationships, so thinking about the people that's needed on the project. Manage by stages. Manage by stages is about breaking the project down into smaller chunks. It makes it easier to manage. As a minimum, we would always have 2 stages. The first stage is to plan everything, and then the second stage is to do all of the work, producing the products, implementing the products. And it's that second stage that we could break down further into more stages if that is how it needs to be done for that environment. Manage by exception is about the delegation downwards of tolerances. So this is kind of like permissible boundaries that we can work within. And if we are forecasting to go outside of a tolerance that we have to work within, then we would need to escalate that up straight away. Focus on products is making sure that when we are looking at the project, we are focusing on what are the products that we need to produce, that we need to implement, and then think about how can we actually achieve those products. But the first point is, let's think about the products first. And tailor to suit the project. Thinking, is your organisation, does it have its own terminology, its own acronyms? Does it already have templates or procedures to follow? If so, do we need to tailor the project to make it more suitable to take on some of that terminology? So all of the principles need to be considered all the way through the project. Now the practices, we said that these are evolving and changing, and these can happen alongside each other. Again, we've got 7 practices, and we're going to explore all of these today, but only at a high level. The processes. Each of those blue shaded boxes is our processes. The trigger to come into the first process is the mandate, and this is coming from the business layer, the more senior management. So the mandate is the trigger to come into the first process of starting up a project. So let's explore what we do in starting up a project. Now, all of our processes in PRINCE2 will have an overview diagram like this. And those blue boxes are showing the activities, the things we need to do within that particular process. So at the top left-hand side, we've got the project mandate being the trigger. And the first activity we come to is to appoint the executive and project manager. The executive is the person in charge of the project board representing the business. The project manager is then asked to coordinate and organise and manage the project on a day-to-day basis on behalf of the executive. We assess previous lessons so that we can take on the learning that's needed. Prepare the outline business case. Now, the first version of the business case is created here, and it's called an outline business case because it's quite a high-level view of this to see whether it looks like this project is a good idea to go ahead with. Over at the right-hand side, we've then got appoint the project management team. So who else do we need on this project? Select the project approach. So this is how are we going to deliver this project? Can we upgrade something we've already got? Do we need to have something bespoke created? And all of this information is then coming together into the project brief. So the project brief is like a folder that holds all this information together. And that needs to be presented to the project board for approval. But before we take the project brief to the project board, we would first of all plan the initiation stage so that when we go to the project board for approval, we can present the project brief and the plan of the next piece of work that we are wanting to go into. So as part of starting up a project, one of the things there was to understand who is the project management team. Now, at the right-hand side of this, we can see project management team wrote on the side with PMT highlighted in red. Project management team can be abbreviated into PMT, and this is really helpful because PMT is made up of 3 letters and the project management team is made up of 3 levels of management. We have the project board who are directing the project, the project manager who's managing the project on a day-to-day basis, and the team manager who is looking after the delivering level, delivering the products. So the project management team, the PMT, made up of 3 levels of management. The commissioning, the business layer, is not part of the project management team, but they are part of the overall organisation structure. The business case. We created the first version of the business case in starting up a project, and that was referred to as the outline business case. Now, as we progress through into our project, we will have different versions. So as we go into the initiation stage and we plan the project in more detail, we can then create a full detailed business case. As we get into the delivery stages where the products are starting to be produced, at the end of each stage, we will be checking whether we've still got the justification in the business case to continue or not. As part of the business case, we're also understanding the benefits. Now, benefits is that positive change within the business. Once the users are using the new products, then we can start to think about, are those benefits being seen? So sometimes we might see benefits at the end of a stage if we've managed to implement things for the users to start using. But more likely, it's going to be at the end of the project when we can confirm benefits, or even after the project has closed, once the users have had time to use those new products. So starting up a project, we're going to have the project brief and the initiation stage plan to present to the project board for approval. Now, the project board does all of their decision making in directing a project. And the first decision they need to make is to decide whether to allow us to go into initiation. So we're asking them to authorise initiation. If the project board says yes, we can then come into the third process of initiating a project. So with initiating a project, again, we have these overview diagrams for all of the processes. So coming down from the top of that diagram, we're coming from directing a project. We have initiating a project has been authorised, and the first blue activity we come to is to agree the tailoring requirements. Now, some organisations might have their own terminology, language. They might have their own templates for some of the documents. They might even have a tailored procedures for project management. So we want to take that on board before we start creating lots of documents. So we agree the tailoring before we come down and agree the management approaches. Now, we've got 9 management approaches altogether, and these are purely describing procedures to follow. So we'll have a management approach for change, for benefits, for quality, for risk, and so on. So we need to do that after we've understood any sort of tailoring requirements, because we need to be tailoring based on the organisation's needs. Once we've got those management approaches created, we then come down and prepare the project plan. So this is a high-level view of everything we need to be doing on the project. And as part of putting that project plan together, we're going to be establishing project controls, such as what reporting needs to happen, where can the stage boundaries be placed in the project, and what tolerances do we need to work within. The project plan will also give us an estimate for the timescales and the costings of the project, and this will then enable us to update the business case to prepare a full detailed business case, which is now showing the justification for delivering the project as a whole. All of this information is coming together then into the PID, the project initiation documentation, which will need to go to the project board for approval. Now, as part of initiating a project, a lot of our practices get addressed here, particularly around all of those management approaches that are created. So one of the practices that will be created there, or one of the practices that's looked at there for the approaches, is the risk practice. So here we've got the definition of a risk. And the key thing about a risk is uncertainty. So risk is an uncertain event or set of events that, should it occur, will have an effect on the achievement of objectives. So if a risk is something that's uncertain, words to look out for to help spot risks are may, might, and could. So by learning these really simple words can really help it as to identify risks a lot easier. So look out for may, might, could, and straight away whatever it's referring to has a level of uncertainty. Whereas if we look at an issue is an event relevant to the project that requires project management consideration, but it's something that has happened or it will happen and it was not planned. So a risk is something that may happen, an issue is something that has happened. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do another little poll. Okay, so let's open up the second poll for today, which is asking which of the following is a risk. So please share your thoughts as far as which of these is a risk. Okay, last little chance. I think we've more or less got everyone there. Okay, let's end the poll and share the results. There we go. So 96% of people, 89 of you, thought that that was the third one. There could be a delay to the project, which is absolutely correct. The key word there is could. Whereas the first one, there will be a delay to the project. That is an issue that we would need to deal with at that point. and there has been a delay to the project, again, it's something that is reality. An issue is more urgent than a risk. A risk may never happen. An issue has happened, so it is more urgent than a risk. But looking out for the word could, may, might helps you to spot risks. Okay, let's close that one down. Now, one of the other practices that gets addressed is quality. So quality is about understanding what is the criteria of either the end product or the individual products. It links into the principle of focus on products. Now, one of the documents, one of the management products that we need is the project product description. So this is describing the scope of the project, what the project's product is. And within here, we need the user's quality expectations. So here we've got an example that the users are wanting a fast, new, flashy car. But each of those could be misinterpreted. If we're talking about a fast car, one person's opinion of a fast car and somebody else's might be different. A new car, do we mean a new car or just a different car for them? So alongside the user's quality expectations, we also need to have acceptance criteria, which is a measurable definition. So if we're talking about a fast car, if it does 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, that's pretty fast. If it's a new car, anything up to 2 years old would be acceptable. And if it's a flashy car, it's going to be on the What Cars top 10 most desirable cars. So it's something we can measure against. But we also need individual product descriptions for the component products to make sure that we understand the criteria of those as well. And by having product descriptions put in place, by having those approved, means that we're more likely to achieve a quality end product. Plans, we create the project plan in the initiation stage. So we're going to be identifying what are the major products. We would write product descriptions for those, think about the estimates of time and cost for the products and the activities to obtain those products. And that will then give us an overall time and cost for doing the overall project. But at the project plan level, we also want to think about, could we break this down into smaller chunks, into further stages to make it more manageable? So coming out of initiating a project, we have the PID that needs to go to the project board for approval. But when we are with the project board, we want to make the best use of their time. So we would first of all come across into managing a stage boundary first to create the next stage plan. So the project plan shows us a high level view, but the stage plan needs to go into more detail. But we would go through the same steps. We're creating the product descriptions for the more detailed products, looking at the estimates of time and cost for the products and activities to give us an overall time and cost for doing that stage. So coming out of managing a stage boundary, we will then have the stage plan to go to the board for approval as well. So when we go to directing a project, we are first of all asking them to authorise the project by presenting the PID. But then we would also ask them to authorise the next stage plan. So if the project board approves the next stage plan, that then brings us in to controlling the stage. And this is where the project manager looks after the day-to-day management of the stage itself, giving out work packages to the team manager in managing product delivery. Now, when the team manager receives the work package in managing product delivery, it's at that point that they could create a team plan if it was needed. It's not always needed. Depends on the complexity of the work in the work package. Now, from managing product delivery, as the teams are doing the work, they will send regular checkpoint reports back to project manager, who can then update the stage with the reality of how the work is going. Now, this update of progress is bringing us then onto the progress practice. And progress reporting needs to happen between each of the different layers of management. So from the team manager, we have checkpoint reports being sent to the project manager to keep the project manager up to date on how the work package is going. The project manager would update the project board via a highlight report. And the project board would update the more senior level, the business layer, with project status report. So we've got reporting progress going back up. But as part of progress practice is also where we look at tolerances. So tolerances is the permissible deviation, and tolerances gets delegated downwards. So looking at this diagram, at the left-hand side of the diagram, from the business layer coming down, we have project tolerances delegated to project board, then stage tolerances delegated to project manager, and work package tolerances delegated to the team manager. And all of those different levels of management have those tolerances that they must work within. And if they are forecasting to go outside of a tolerance, they must escalate back up immediately. So from controlling a stage, we're updating our stage plan with the progress that's been made. But as we're coming towards the end of one stage, we go into managing a stage boundary to plan the next stage. But we also update the project plan, the business case, create an end stage report, present it to the project board to get the next stage plan approved. And depending on how many stages your project is broken down into, the processes that are highlighted now might need to be repeated a number of times. When we are working on the final stage, we would go into controlling a stage and giving out work packages to the team manager in managing product delivery, just like all the other stages. But as we're coming towards the end of the final stage, we come across into closing a project. We confirm that all of the products are completed, that everything's been implemented. We're evaluating the project, looking at lessons, think about communication that needs to be sent out, and we're going to be archiving all of the project documentation in case there's any future audits on the project's decision making. And from closing a project, we hand it back over to the project board in directing a project to formally authorise the closure. So we've done a high-level overview there of our core areas of PRINCE2. So what we're going to do to finish off is have a little bit of a chat around the exams and the courses. So PRINCE2 has got two levels of exams. We have foundation and practitioner. Foundation course and exams are based around the theory. Multiple choice questions. We've got 60 multiple choice questions to do in 60 minutes. The pass mark is also 60%, which is 36 out of 60. You cannot use any material for the foundation exam. Now, the practitioner exam is based much more on the practical application. It is still multiple choice questions, but this time the 70 questions are based around a scenario. We have 150 minutes or 2.5 hours to do the practitioner exam. The pass mark is still 60%, which is 42 out of the 70 questions. But with the practitioner exam, you can actually use your PRINCE2 manual, whether that be an ebook or a physical book, during your exam. So you can refer to your book for guidance. As far as how to learn PRINCE2, there's various different training available. You can do self-studying via e-learning, where you can learn at your own pace. You can pause and rewind and go over things. There is also live virtual classrooms, and the live virtual classrooms, if people have their cameras on and things, can really feel like you're together. We also have more traditional classrooms, face-to-face delivery, and a blended version of all of the above. So sometimes people might do e-learning and virtual, or e-learning and classroom. You can have a bit of a mixture of these. So to round off, we're going to finish off with another poll at this point. Let me launch this poll. So what are your next steps from today? Are you learning PRINCE2 at foundation level? Are you learning PRINCE2 at practitioner? Are you updating your current qualifications, or looking at other project management qualifications, other things that are out there? Okay. So I think at the moment the majority coming through is looking at foundation level. Just wait for a couple more people to put their comments on. Okay. So looking at this, the majority of people are looking to go into the foundation level, but some people are ready for practitioner level, which is great. Updating current PRINCE2 qualifications. PRINCE2 does change with different versions, and this new version that we're working on now, I might be slightly biased, but it is, in my opinion, the best version so far. I've been involved with a few versions over the years. But because of that people considerations that have been brought into this newer version, it is really good. It's much more up to date. And looking at other qualifications, there are other qualifications that also complement PRINCE2 as well. Okay. Let's close that down. Okay. So we're going to finish off now with questions and answers. So if you do have any questions about PRINCE2, then feel free to pop those into the little question box now, and I shall do my very best to answer as many as we possibly can. Okay, so let's have a look at the questions. So justification via business case and project initiation document charter. I'm not sure what the question is there, but yeah, the justification is based around the business case, and then the business case goes inside the PID. Now, a charter is another methodology terminology. In PRINCE2, we use the word PID, but yeah, it's one and the same thing. Where did we get to there? Hang on. Thank you. How to adapt this product-orientated method PRINCE2 to a project orientated on service, for example, delivering a research in international development context. So PRINCE2 can be used for all different types of projects, including research projects or project orientated on a service. Even if we are delivering a service, in order to deliver that service, you will still need to obtain a number of products to actually deliver the service. So even though it is a service, the concept of focus on products is still real, it is still appropriate. So even though it is a service, it is still product focused. Yeah. I am a project coordinator looking at PRINCE2 Foundation, looking forward in my career. Will I need PRINCE2 practitioner to become a project manager? Depends on the industry, depends on the organisation's requirements. Some people do specify that they want somebody to be at practitioner level. Other people just want you to have an appreciation of project management and PRINCE2. So it's down to the employer really. So there's no given that it has to be practitioner level, but it would be helpful. Does the course have a specific start date, or can each person start learning at a time that is convenient to them? If you are choosing e-learning, then you can start the learning whenever you want to. That you can do that in the middle of the night if you want to. If you are attending a virtual classroom or a face-to-face classroom, then clearly everybody will be starting that at the same time. So it can be various start times and things if you're wanting to do e-learning. How does PRINCE2 differ from PRINCE2 Agile? PRINCE2 Agile explores the connection to the delivery teams further than what PRINCE2 does. So PRINCE2 focuses on the management of the project, whereas PRINCE2 Agile focuses a lot more on when we give out the work package to the delivery teams, actually seeing how the delivery teams are then managing that work package. So it focuses a little bit more on that area and will, to a degree, focus less on the management of the overall project. It assumes that you already have that knowledge. Do you need to do foundation before practitioner, or can you go straight to practitioner? Generally speaking, yes, you need to do foundation before practitioner. Bear with me, I've just lost your question for a moment. So yes, you do need to do foundation before practitioner. Can you do them at the same time? You can do a course that goes from foundation and goes straight into practitioner. So it would be 3 days of foundation, 2 days of practitioner to make up a 5-day course, or you can do foundation at one point and practitioner at a different point of time. You can do part of e-learning, some face-to-face, however you want to do it. Now, there are other qualifications, though, that the exam board recognises to cover the foundation level. But in my personal opinion, it would be better to do foundation and then go to practitioner, because then you are learning the PRINCE2's terminology and the PRINCE2's way of doing things. Are resits available if the exam is failed? That is a yes. Yes, resits are available. The exam board does charge for every exam that is used, and the exam board also offer like that you can buy a resit before you do it, which is a little bit cheaper. I have 15 years project management experience, but would like a PRINCE2 certificate. Which course would be suitable? Well, it goes back to the previous question there about whether to do foundation and practitioner. The fact that you've got a lot of experience there does not necessarily change the fact that you would need to do foundation and then practitioner. If you do have other qualifications, then some of those might be able to be taken into account for the foundation level. But even though you have lots of experience, sometimes it would still be better to do foundation and practitioner. What will the exams look like? Will it be a video call requiring camera on, etc.? Could you kindly talk us through what the exam process will be like? Absolutely. So yes, all exams are taken online with PeopleCert, who are the people who own PRINCE2. They use a system where they kind of log into your computer, so they can monitor what's happening on your computer. You do need to have a camera that does need to be on at all times, and people, when they are looking at setting up the exam itself, they will ask you to look around the room. They will need to have a door in the background. Oh, I'm pointing at the door, the camera's not on. You'd need to have a door in the background of your camera as well, so that they can see if anybody comes into the room, for example. But the fact that they need to kind of log into your machine, it's a bit like when IT support people come and take over your machine. Some organisations' firewalls can struggle with that. So I would always suggest to try to use a personal or a standalone laptop to do your exam. Hopefully that's helped there with what the exams look like. Just go back to the questions. In your experience, do you see the practicing of PRINCE2 methodology more in the private or public sector? I think there's a real mixture. I think a number of years ago, it was very much public sector, along with quite a lot of private sector. But there are other methodologies that can sit alongside PRINCE2, and often people might do some of the other methodologies as well. So the one I'm really thinking about is APM, so the Association of Project Management. They have different level qualifications, just like PRINCE2 does. So there's project fundamentals, project management qualifications, and so on. And they complement PRINCE2. The benefits of using PRINCE2 is it gives you that real good structure, like the foundations. But then with APM, it's maybe giving like a broader understanding of creating plans and things. So it kind of complements PRINCE2. It kind of sits on top of PRINCE2. So in my experience, ideally, you want to have both. Yeah. Is there a notable difference in pass rates between the types of learning? Judith, in all honesty, I don't have those stats. So it's not an answer I can give you at the moment. Okay. Will the presentation be shared following the session? You will be sent a link to this recording. So as part of that, there will be, you'll be able to watch this over and over again. I was put on a course by Work for PRINCE2 Agile, completed the foundation and sitting the practitioner next week. Good. Struggling to know how to put into practice. I work for an electrical company, and the only with any training on PRINCE2 Agile. As far as putting things into practice, once you've done your learning, whether it be PRINCE2 or PRINCE2 Agile, there is that reality of going back into the workplace, and the workplace is probably not necessarily set up ideally as your textbook. But what I would suggest is thinking about the basic structure of the course, and think about how you could implement certain areas of that. So, or maybe when you are starting the next new project, then start to follow the guidance of PRINCE2 at that point. If you're already halfway through projects, it can be tailored into PRINCE2 structure, but it's probably easier if it started with your next new project. Over what period of time would you recommend completing the online course? The online course will give you access for a number of months, but it is good to do it over a shorter time period. So if you can plan in your diary ahead of time what time you can allocate to the e-learning, but do it on a regular basis. So if it's not like full days or half days, if it's a couple of hours every day or every other day for a few weeks, then that would be my recommendation. One of the things about doing learning in any format is over time, some of the things that we've learned, we will not necessarily have at the priority of our brain. In other words, other things take over. So you want to keep it fresh in your mind, and therefore I would suggest to do it over a shorter period as you can. Let me just make sure I'm not missing any questions. There we go. Looking to apply qualifications in a construction mechanical context. Just training material typically include relevant examples within this context. Absolutely, Daniel. So yeah, as far as PRINCE2 is for all different types of projects. Often it can be easier to explain projects around construction because it's something that people can often relate to. So it would definitely be including examples around that. Do you have any mock exams available, and if what price? There are mock exams available at both foundation and practitioner level. So if you join the learning for foundation and practitioner, all of those will then be available as part of the course itself. I already hold APM Project Fundamentals qualification. Is the PRINCE2 Foundation similar level to APM? Yeah, if you've got your PFQ already, it is very similar kind of level to your foundation. The only thing is your Project Fundamentals is based around APM language and terminology, whereas your PRINCE2 Foundation will be using the PRINCE2's terminology. And when it comes to sitting the exams, the terminology that's used is something that you want to be familiar with. Bear with me, where are we at? Once qualified, do you have to complete the whole thing in 3 years, or is there a refresh version? You don't have to do the whole thing again, no. You can just resit the exam if you want to do that, or you can purely do practitioner to redo your practitioner level. Foundation, once you've done foundation's kind of done with, but your practitioner, you're right, as far as it recommends every 3 years that you refresh your qualification, but you can purely just sit the exam if you wanted to do that. Let's have a look where we're at. How long does it take to complete PRINCE2 if a daily learning of 2 hours, how long does it take if a daily learning of 2 hours is done? Everybody learns at different paces. To give you an idea, if you did a face-to-face classroom or a virtual classroom, to do PRINCE2 would take 5 days. So you've got 3 days of foundation, 2 days of practitioner. So if you are doing e-learning, you want to be thinking it's going to be taking a similar kind of time frame as 5 days based on a 9 o'clock, 5 o'clock training course. But different people learn at different speeds. So if you use that as a bit of a baseline, then you could think about your own pace of learning and then adjust that really. But if you're only doing a couple of hours a day, you also need to be thinking that about if you do it every single day, then hopefully you'll be able to keep up to speed. But you might need to do a bit of a refresher within it as well. Can this session be shared? My sound is very poor. Oh, sorry, you missed some of this. Yes, it is going to be emailed across to everybody. It's also available on, or it will be available on YouTube later today. Is PRINCE2 recognised in the energy sector? Absolutely, it's recognised everywhere. How often does PRINCE2 Foundation and or Practitioner editions change? And do we know when edition 8 will be available? Now, I was on the authoring group for this version. If there was sight that we was about to have a version 8, I would be aware of it, and I'm not aware of anything of that. Over the years, they have changed PRINCE2 at different points. The last one, there was about 5 or 6 years in between the different versions. Before that, some of them was a little bit longer than that. But it's about making sure that it's still relevant for within organisations and the ways of working. So if there was suddenly radical changes of ways of working, then PRINCE2 would need to be looked at. But I'm not aware that there is going to be a new version coming out in the immediate future. Let's have a look. What would a blended PRINCE2 look like for both practitioner and foundation courses? So a blended course is where you would possibly do e-learning for maybe foundation, and then you would do either a virtual or face-to-face classroom for practitioner. Or you might do virtual for foundation, classroom for practitioner. It can be a real mixture. But a blended is very much often half e-learning and then virtual or classroom. Let's have a look. What is the biggest value of getting this qualification? Well, different people have value in different ways. It can open doors if you are looking for career development. It can open some doors if an organisation is specifically looking for that qualification. But it can also give you a broader knowledge and understanding of just how to manage projects in a logical and consistent way. So as far as value, I'm not quite sure how else to describe that. If you are asking, are you going to get a pay rise if you've got PRINCE2? It's not something I can answer. Okay. Are there set days for exams, or can you take it anytime you are ready? You can take the exam anytime you are ready. PeopleCert, who is the exam board, are based in Greece, and they look after exams worldwide, so they cover every time zone as well. It is a case of just looking on there. Once you've registered, you can then look to see what on the calendar of what available days and what time of days is available, and then you choose it yourself. Is it possible to purchase just the exam for foundation and practitioner? Yes, you can just do the exam if you wanted to do that. How do you keep all the online materials when the license is expired? Materials are in different ways. You have materials from us at ILX, and when you have purchased the course and we give you the materials, you can save copies of those. That's yours to keep forever. As far as the PeopleCert access to the ebook, if you've bought a physical book, again, that's yours forever. Access to the ebook, PeopleCert will give you access to the ebook so for a certain amount of time. That's correct. And that would be a conversation you would need to have with PeopleCert if you're wanting to have that longer than what they are allowing. But it is many years. You have access to it for many years. Yeah. Are there any practice papers available online? And we mentioned about mock papers earlier. So yeah, once you've decided which course you wanted to do, as part of the course materials will be some practice papers that will be all part of your materials that you're given. I'm a continuous improvement engineer, trying to determine whether PRINCE2 or PRINCE2 Agile would be better suited for my role. Can you please provide insight on the methodology might be more beneficial for managing projects in a dynamic and fast-paced environment like ours? Okay, I've worked with various pharmaceutical companies over the years, and even though PRINCE2 gives you this amazing structure, it is possible PRINCE2 Agile might be better in a fast-paced environment like that. But in order to do PRINCE2 Agile, you do need a certain level of understanding of PRINCE2 as well. Okay. I've heard APM is a lot harder than PRINCE2. Okay, do you know whether this is true? Now, in all honesty, Joanne, was it Joanne? Sorry. No, let me just go back to the question. Oh, it is Joanna, sorry. In all honesty, Joanna, I do think APM exams are a bit harder than PRINCE2 exams, but I might be a little bit biased there. Your PRINCE2 foundation and your APM project fundamentals qualification is about on par. They're both about the same kind of level of difficulty. PRINCE2 practitioner is the next level for PRINCE2, and your PMQ is the next level for your APM. Now, PMQ qualification used to be incredibly hard. There was only 40% of people passing the exam. And as such, the APM over the last 18 months or so have been working at changing the structure of that exam. And as such, the new version of the PMQ qualification is a lot better than what it ever was before. So historically wise, absolutely APM, PMQ was a lot harder. But the thing with your PRINCE2 practitioner is you can take your PRINCE2 book into the exam itself as a reference guide, whereas with APM that's not possible. How many people attend the classroom courses in London? So it can vary. I would say on average it's somewhere between, say, 15 and 20 people that attend the classes in London. Is the online learning is the same recognition as practical learning? Yeah, it's exactly the same qualifications, it's the same learning, it's just the different way of doing the learning. Realistically, how long would it take to grasp the material to pass the exam? We mentioned earlier that the courses, foundation is 3 days, practitioner is 2 days. Within the adaptability of PRINCE2, it talks about the separation of management of the project work of specialist development activities in a controlled environment. Struggling to get my head around exactly what this means. Yeah. Okay, so as we are looking at, you know what, I'm going to go back to a slide because it'll make life a lot easier. So we've got this process down at the bottom, managing product delivery. So when we give out the work package to the teams in managing product delivery, the people who are doing the work do everything in managing product delivery. All of the other processes are about managing the project, coordinating, organising the project. So by having managing product delivery, that separates out the production of the products from all the other processes, which is the management of the project. So hopefully that's helped out with that one. Now, coming towards the end of the questions, bear with me a moment as I just get back to where we was. Foundation exam seems to be exceptionally detailed in its questions. Does this mean almost memorising every definition of each of the 5 elements? There are some areas that you could focus on more than others. In each of the practices and the processes, every one of them starts out with a purpose, which is just normally 2 or 3 sentences. So we have 7 practices and 7 processes. And if you learn the purpose of each of those, that would help a lot as far as with exam questions. Okay.
Oh, sorry to interrupt you, Karen. I think that's 12 o'clock, so we're going to have to finish here.
That's okay. So thank you for your question. I'm sorry there was a few at the end that we've not quite managed to deal with, but thank you very much there. So I'll hand you back over. Thank you.
Thanks very much, everyone. Yeah, like Karen said, if you do have any questions that haven't been answered on today's session, you can still get in touch and we can answer them. If you either send them through to our contact us email address, or if you drop us a message on LinkedIn, yeah, we can get back to you there, and we'll make sure your questions answered that way. Thank you very much for joining the webinar. We hope you found it useful. As mentioned about the recording, we will be sending over an email tomorrow with a link to that included. And you can find out more about PRINCE2 and any of our sort of future webinar sessions on our website. Thank you very much, and we hope you all have a lovely rest of your day.
Thanks, bye.